this real dream? This crazy spin is nothing as it seems. You take me away from my world, from my world. Take me away from my world, from my world. Take me away from my world, from my world. Take me away from
Hello, welcome to Relationship Alive Live here on YouTube, my first ever YouTube live stream. And I'm excited to have you here with me. Hi, Mia. Thanks for being the first to say hello in the chat. And as we get started, if you're not aware, there is a chat here on YouTube. And that's what we're going to use for your questions. And I'll probably say this one more time, but if you do have a question, it's helpful probably if you preface it with the letter Q, like a capital Q or something, just so I can, in case we have lots of comments. I don't know how this is going to go, it being the first ever. Yeah, if we have lots of comments, it will be helpful to see the Q, so I know what to look for in the comments. My name is Neil Satin, it says it right here, and I'm the host of Relationship Alive, which is a podcast that I started, 10 years ago. I think it was 10 years ago, maybe even 11 years ago when I first had the idea for Relationship Alive, because honestly, I had been suffering in relationships. And this was despite the fact that I was already working as a coach and helping other people. But no matter what, it seemed like there was something missing in terms of what I knew about how to have a good relationship, and then also in terms of the commonly available knowledge about how to do that. And so from that, Relationship Alive was born. I literally wrote 3 letters to 3 people who I thought would be my best possible guests, and they all said yes, even though I didn't even have a podcast yet. So that was exciting for me. That was 11 years ago, and now here we are in 2024. The world is different. I'm different. You're different, and I'm so excited to be here to share with you, and honestly to be here to support you. One of the things that I thought a lot about during the hiatus that I took from the podcast, I did release an episode a few months back just to kind of catch everyone up on where I was and what was going on. I have a bunch of new episodes that are ready to go. But while I was away, it was important to me to get really clear on what I wanted to bring back to you with Relationship Alive. And one thing that came through really clear for me was that I wanted to be here to find more ways to offer support to you. I do coach clients privately, which is great. And there's only so much time that I have to devote to things like that. And so one way that occurred to me was something like this, where we can sit and hang out together. And if you have questions, I can answer them, and I will do my best. I know that the chat is maybe a limited medium, but maybe that's good. Maybe it'll help people keep their questions concise, and I can answer them as best as I can. Yeah. So I had a whole spiel that I was thinking about starting with tonight. First, let me just say, if you are here and watching, if you could say hello in the chat, if you could just say where you're from, so I have a sense of where people are in the world, that would be awesome. And really cool to see where people are from. I know I had someone reach out who is in Germany and who said, sorry, it's going to be 2 a.m. in Germany, so I'm not going to be able to be there. And I understand. But if you made it, welcome. And I'm sorry about the insomnia. So yeah, just chime in the chat. Let me know where you are. And rather than the spiel, I think I just want to start by saying, I think that generally, and if you've been a longtime listener of Relationship Alive, then you will probably have heard me say this before. But generally, I come from the perspective that we are all doing the best we can at any given moment. And sometimes our best is amazing. And, you know, it gets us into relationships and it keeps things happening and keeps the sparks sparking. Hi, Zella. Zella Satin's in Maine, where I am. I wonder how that happened. And Mia, I see you're in Oregon. Awesome. Thanks for joining from the West Coast. Yeah, I think people are generally doing their best, and sometimes it's amazing and other times not so amazing. And this isn't to say that those not so amazing times, whether it's our partners showing up for us in not so amazing ways, or we have the realization that we may have shown up in a not so amazing way, it doesn't mean that that's something that we shouldn't strive to change or do something about. But my goal when I say I think we're all doing the best we can is for us to have some compassion for ourselves, compassion for our partners, because that as soon as we start judging ourselves or judging our partners, then that becomes this huge wall between you and the world or you and the other person. And then it's even more of a burden to try and reach out and connect. Hey, Zach in Maine, nice to have you here. So yeah, it's that compassion hopefully lets you see people for who they are, imperfect beings. I'm imperfect, you're imperfect. If you're just hearing this for the first time, sorry to break it to you. But the thing is, it's okay. It's okay. We are all perfectly imperfect. And that's a good way to be. It gives us permission to fail and to get up again. And just like I'm here tonight, this is the first ever live stream. If this goes great, we'll definitely do more. If this goes not so great, we'll definitely do more, because it's all a learning process. The more you can stay learning for yourself, and even if you're not in a relationship, if you're just out in the world, whether you're trying to date or not, just recognize that this is a glorious experiment that we are a part of. You get to start, as this little group of cells, right? And then blossom into a being and then continue to blossom. And, I just turned 50 and I think I'm still blossoming. I don't know. You tell me. The whole point being that as long as we're breathing, we have opportunities to learn and grow and experience amazing joy, and sometimes some sadness, some hard times, some challenges. Those things are hard. And, well, that's one reason that we're here tonight, because I want to celebrate with you if things are going well. And if things are hard or challenging, then, hey, I'm here. Like, lean on me. So I did get a question. Hello, Maxine in Portland. Wow, we got a lot of Mainers here. I'm from Maine. It's good to be in Maine. If you haven't been to Maine before, you should come sometime and visit. Maybe we'll do an in-person session or something like that. That would be great. So I was saying that I did get a question emailed to me. So I may start with that while we wait to see if any other questions trickle in. And I'll take notes. And I did want to mention that I do have a little something special, a little something different planned for towards the end. So whether we go for another 15 or 20 minutes or go for, I think we'll max out at an hour. That will be a good spot. But yeah, so we're going to go. And then if you stay around to the end, I have a little something special that I'd love to share with you. Okay. So how about we dive into questions? Thanks again. If you are just joining, thanks for being here. If you have a question, please put it in the chat. If you can't put something in the chat, I think you have to subscribe to the channel to be able to put a message in the chat. So just subscribe and then you should be good. Meanwhile, let's start with the first question. A listener writes, and I'm going to do my best to leave out some of the identifying information here. I'm an older guy that wants a relationship a lot. And I found someone about 9 months ago that I really enjoy spending time with. The question is, it seems more and more one-sided on the give and take of the relationship. I'm not the type, I don't believe, that keeps score, but it seems like everything is tipped more and more her way or no way. Things like what shows we watch, where and when we eat, the music we listen to, where we walk, and essentially everything needs to be her idea in order to happen. And then he just says, I really appreciate someone who's independent, but I'm wondering if she's so independent that we're missing each other somewhere. And that's not fun. Great. Blah, blah, blah. I'd appreciate any feedback. And he did say he hopes to catch me live. I hope you are here to witness this. So thanks for that question. That's a great question and a great example of how we can find our way in to a situation. And then once you're in it, sometimes you're in it and then suddenly you're like, wait a minute, like what's going on here? Now, I think, did they say, yeah, 9 months ago. So they've been together 9 months. And that's a decent amount of time to like where you start to really get a feel for how a person is. Often we're on our best behavior at the very beginning of a relationship. And also there's a lot of limerence or new relationship energy that is that helps kind of propel you into relationship. Lots of dopamine, lots of endorphins, and the upshot of that experience is that it can not only help us be at our best, but it also helps us ignore things that might actually be questionable about the other person or that might make us hesitate. There's probably some good biology behind that, right? Like when you met someone, if you saw all their imperfections and you'd never get into a relationship and you'd never do all the things humans are supposed to do, like procreate, and our species would be extinct a long time ago. So thankfully, we experience all these neurochemicals in our body, and it blinds us to other people's faults, and there we are. And that sounds like a challenging situation that our listener described. And I just want to say that I admire you for sticking with it, and also for being able to take a step back and look at the situation and figure out that there are some things that aren't quite sitting right with you. And the question is, what do you do about those things? Now, you didn't tell me what things you've tried, if anything. And that can be hard, right? Because when people do things that impact us, I was just talking about this with my family over dinner. People do things that impact us, and then we have a response to it. And often we have a story about it. In this situation, my story, if I were in your shoes, my story might be something like, she doesn't really care what I think or what I want. And often that story that we have bubbles up from a story that's repeated itself over and over again in our lives. Now, I've told you a little bit something about my life, right? By telling you the story that came to mind for me. I could think of other stories if I sat here and thought about it long enough. So it's important to identify the story that's coming up for you. So maybe it's this person doesn't care. Maybe it's I'm not important. Maybe it's this person is so independent and I don't know how I'm going to be able to connect with her. So whatever it is, recognize what's going on for you and what that brings up for you. You know, does it bring up some anger, some frustration? Hey, I'd like to be able to decide what show we're going to watch for once, or can't I decide where we're going to walk tonight? That sort of thing could bring up some anger, some frustration. I will say that usually that angry place is not the best place to communicate with someone about this. And oh yeah, that's where we're going with this answer, is that you're going to want to communicate about it. Now, you could not communicate about it. You could just say, I've decided that tonight we're going to blah, blah. You could try that. Or you could try something a little more gentle than that, like, hey, tonight I would like to blah, blah. How does that sound to you? Can we do that together? Part of what you need to figure out is, can you invite this person into a dance with you where you're working together? With what I was saying at the very beginning about how we're all always doing our best and we're all bringing our own stories into our relationship, there's probably a good reason in this person's life that they are taking charge of everything. And maybe you know already what that's about, but if you don't, this is a great opportunity to get curious and be like, I wonder why that is. Like, what is it about her that, and I'm saying her because in this case it's a her, but it could be anyone. What is it about them that makes them operate that way? I wonder. That's a great way to maybe enter another conversation with her where you're like, this might be a conversation after you try, where let's say you do make an offering and she says, no, I don't want to do that. Let's do this. And that's how it goes. Then probably not in that moment, because generally you want to take some time to like let things settle and think about it. But later you might say, hey, can we chat about what happened the other night? And assuming this person says, sure, what do you want to chat about? You could say something like, well, I offered to do this thing that was really important to me, and you said no. And when you said that, I noticed that I got really hurt. I wanted to do something with you, and we ended up doing the thing you wanted to do. But it was really hard for me to suggest that thing and have you say no. And you could just leave it like that and see, like that's your invitation, see what she says. If you were going to add anything at all, maybe later in the conversation, it might be something like, and I'm just wondering, are you open to doing things that I'm interested in doing? And you see what she says. And if she says yes, then great. And if she says no, well, you might want to start thinking about, well, do I want to be in a relationship with this person, right? Because there are a lot of people out there to be in relationships with. But if she says no, that would be a great opportunity to get curious and be like, could you help me understand why you're not open to that? That's really confusing for me. And you'll get more information. So I hope this has been helpful for you. This one question contains so much. They always do. And often when I work with couples, they have like this whole list of things that have happened in their relationship, but they happen to be arguing about this morning's breakfast. And the reality is that whatever happened this morning at breakfast time, everything is contained in that moment, or almost everything. Maybe not everything, but enough is contained there. So thank you so much for that amazing question. I hope that's helpful and it gives you some direction. It's important to ensure that whenever you're communicating, you check in with the other person and be like, hey, can we talk about this thing? And if they say no, or not right now, then you can just ask, well, is there a time when would be good for you? Because I'd love to chat with you. That way, when you actually sit down to talk, you got some buy-in. It's not blindsiding them. All right. If there's anything about that needs clarification, I welcome anyone to put something in the chat. And I see Melissa is here from Victoria, British Columbia, another person out west. Hi, Melissa. Great to have you here with us. And I think with that, I can open the floor for more questions. And also, if you have a chance, you can say where you're at. You could also just drop a like on the YouTube video if you haven't done that already. That helps us out in the algorithm, especially since we're just getting started with these Relationship Alive live streams. So that's super helpful. Also, if you have a question that's not about relationships or dating, but you just want to ask me something, like, what's the story with that painting behind you? Well, it's a print, actually. What's the story about that print? Go for it. I'm open. And I'm excited to just kind of be here with you and share whatever I can share. And if we don't get any questions, then we can move on to the something special, because I wanted to celebrate with you the very first live stream of Relationship Alive, hopefully first of many. And also, I got to tell you, it was, I see those likes coming in, by the way. Thanks for doing that. That's awesome. It feels really good, because this is a weird medium. Like, I'm here talking, and I've done a lot of Zoom webinars and things like that where I can see people and, do some group coaching, things like that. Whoa, someone from Mexico. That's exciting. Oregon Grape. Hey, good to see you too. Well, actually, I can't see you, but it's good to see your comment here. And thanks for joining. Really appreciate that. So I had stepped away from the podcast for a couple years I didn't know it was going to be a couple years when I stepped away, but it ended up being a couple years. Oh, that's hilarious. Maybe you guys know each other. Both Oregon Grape and Melissa are from Victoria. And then when I came back, when I finally got everything figured out and was like, okay, I'm ready, I'm going to do this. And I started doing interviews again and started putting together some fun offerings that I'm really excited to share with you very soon as they're ready. But it will be more opportunities to offer this kind of support, along with some guided instruction around some key relationship ideas. One of the things I was thinking about, just a little bit of a tangent, I really wanted to simplify what we talk about here, because at its core, the ways that relationships work is very simple. There's some core principles, be good to each other. That seems like it should be obvious, but things like that are super important. And there are ways to be good to each other that have a huge impact. That's just one example. So what I'm putting together is a way to help walk you through these distilled, the simplest things that are really easy to put into practice in your life, but that make a huge difference in terms of the relationships you're having. I can't guarantee that everything's always going to be amazing all the time, because that's not what relationships are. We bump up against each other, and things get rocky at times. And when they get rocky, the measure of good relationship is how resilient you can be. And so there are lots of skills around being resilient in your relationships that feed into the overall strength and vibrancy of your relationship. All of that was a tangent to say, when I came back, I looked at YouTube and I saw that there were already 23,000 something subscribers here on YouTube. And I'd only ever released audio. I'd never even done one video in YouTube. So I was so excited about that that I wanted to jump on and do a live stream. And so that's part of what we're celebrating here tonight as well. So, all right. I see that there is another question in the chat. So let me have a little look here. I'm going to read it out loud, and that will help me kind of internalize what the question is. I'm in a relationship with a caretaker who is learning about boundaries. While he is starting down this path, he still flocks to those who call upon him, and I feel neglected or deprioritized. I want to stay connected to him and not go into resentment for the other people calling upon him. My question is around how to stay connected and respect his process of boundary learning and setting, so respecting that he's in this process, without developing resentment for him and his tribe of people who are used to calling upon him. Okay, great question. Great question. For so many reasons. First, like, kudos to your partner who is learning this thing about boundaries. Like, that's huge. And especially for someone who's a caretaker and, you know, without, like, he's not here, so I can't diagnose him or anything like that. But we'll talk a little bit about, like, why that happens, why we become caretakers, maybe. Sorry, taking a drink of water here. And also, what an amazing, courageous question to realize that it's having this impact on you, that you feel resentful of the people who call upon him. And how do you stay connected and respect that he's in a process, and the process is going to be messy at times. So there are a few things that come to mind. The first thing is, of course, I wonder, I'm guessing that you've been in dialogue about this because you're speaking so clearly about the situation. And perhaps he's even in this process of learning boundaries because of the conversations that you've had and because he has seen the impact on you. So that would be a huge positive thing. And if for some reason you haven't had those conversations, that would be a good place to start. Another thing that pops into my head is to recognize, because people are always doing their best, you'll hear me say that a lot, to recognize that for him, for his life up until now, for some reason, this has been really important. And often, if you're a caretaker, the reason that it's important is because you needed those skills to survive when you were little for some reason. Now, I'm not saying that's his deal. Like, that may not be why he is how he is. Again, just like with the earlier question, hopefully that's part of it, right? Because the more that you have an understanding of where that comes from, the more that you can have compassion around where it comes from. And the more you can show up with that compassion, even when it's hurting you, even when you feel that resentment. So the resentment around, I want to get to the resentment piece, but before I do, so he's showing up for other people. He's as a caretaker in whatever capacity. It sounds like that may be an important part of his, perhaps even his role or his job in the world. So which will make it even more complicated to create boundaries, right? If he has responsibility for others, like, how does he dial that back a little bit? It's going to be a bit of a process to do that. But the other thing is to recognize that because this has been so important, just to remember that in your compassion, as he is learning to set boundaries, perhaps one of your best questions could be, hey, how can I support you in doing this? How can I support you in learning this new capacity and developing this skill? Is there a way that I can show up for you that would make it easier? So that might be a way of coming around so that you're both on the same side of the table, and like the problem of boundary setting and resentment is on the table in front of both of you. It's not like you're sitting across from each other at the table trying to like tease it apart and being at each other. You want to be like facing the problem together and figuring out, well, how do we solve that problem together? So the more that you can be like, hey, how can I support you in this? And that's part of the conversation, then that creates opportunities for you to stay connected to him, and particularly connected to this thing that's probably pretty vulnerable and hard for him. Because if you're used to showing up as a caretaker, then it's really hard to say no. And saying no is going to bring up a lot, probably, for him about, like, you know, could be things like, what's my worth in the world if I'm not showing up in this way? Or it could be, if I don't show up this way, will these people still care about me? Will they still respect me? How do I set a boundary? So that we could have a whole conversation, right, about how to set boundaries in a kind, loving way. In fact, that's one of the things I was talking about earlier. It's simple, but it's a key skill. Like, how do you set that boundary and stay connected to other people? That's part of what you're learning how to do too, right? It's like, how do I set a boundary around you needing to set boundaries? This is important to me that you learn this skill, while at the same time being kind, being caring. Now let's get back to the resentment piece, because I don't want to let that go. These are ways that you can show up for him that might help him feel connected to you. So there's always each person always has a responsibility in every situation. Sometimes your responsibility is only 1%. Sometimes it's 10%. If it brings up resentment, where I start to get curious, like if we were working together, I would want to go deeper in that. So you're resentful. Like, tell me what's the story you're telling yourself? You're telling yourself that, I think you said it earlier. I feel neglected or deprioritized. Okay, great. So part of the story there is he's neglecting me, deprioritized. I'm not important to him. I'm not as important as this other person or these other people. And there may be some legitimacy to that, right? There may be some reality there. There may be some moments where he is genuinely prioritizing other people over you. So I don't want to negate that at all. But what I do want to say is that the place in you where that hurts, that's something you can talk to him about. And I'm guessing that you have, if you're already in this conversation, like, hey, like, you know, when you did that the other day, I got really hurt. Now, the hard thing about a word like neglecting, I feel neglected, or I feel deprioritized. I love words like that. I both hate and love words like that. Because if you say I feel neglected, what you're implying is you, other person, are neglecting me. Or I feel deprioritized. You are not prioritizing me. There may be some truth to that, but it's just like what I said earlier about how if you lead with anger, it's really hard to connect with a person. So if you lead with, you suck, which is basically what you're saying, you're doing a bad job at this relationship thing, then it's really hard for someone to hear that and to know how to show up with you, to know how to show up with compassion for you. So how do you invite compassion? You look deeper than those words. The story you have is he's not prioritizing me, he's neglecting me. The feeling is something deeper than that. It might be like I mean, you can try finding feeling words, like emotion words, like I feel lonely, or I feel sad. Like when you did that, I felt really sad. What I like to often do is to go with the sensations that you're experiencing. So like when that happened, oh, I wanted to cry, or I just like needed to crawl into bed and pull the covers up over me, or something like that. When you describe your feelings that way, it's often really clear to the other person, much more clear than saying even something like I'm sad, because what's sad to you is like might mean something totally different to me. But when you say like, oh, I felt like crying, oh, like, yeah, I've been there, I know what that's like. Or I felt like getting into bed and pulling the covers up over my head, I've been there too. Yeah. And now we're getting related to each other. So to the extent that you can identify where that comes from in you, and maybe even if you have a history around that, this is going to sound familiar as well. If there were times in your life when you felt that way, when you were younger, then you may have some young parts within you that need to be like brought into the present. Like, hey, little 5-year-old who was told, no, you can't have that because your sister needs something, or we're not going to do what you want today because your mother needs whatever it was, right? When we were little beings like that, unfortunately, we didn't have a caring adult in that moment who, I mean, some of us did, but a lot of us didn't have someone who saw us hurting in that moment and feeling neglected or deprioritized, who could see that that was what was happening, that was the meaning we were making out of that thing, and who could like whisper in our ear like, hey, Melissa, like that's not, like you're feeling like they don't care about you, but they actually do care about you. They love you. This is just like your mom's having a bad day, or your sister is having a temper tantrum and needs all the attention right now. Whatever it is, like if someone could be there in the moment and literally guide you through it to a place where you felt like, oh, I'm still loved, I'm still whole. Can you imagine how amazing a childhood like that would be? It would be pretty rad. But the best part is that you can offer that to yourself now, or a good coach or therapist can also offer that to you, can walk you through those moments. But you can do that where you really just get identified with the impact on you as an earlier you. And if this is an earlier you, have that conversation with her and ask her what she needs, give her what she needs, and then show her your life now as an adult and be like, hey, this is what life is like now. Like, let's hang out together now. And then she might say, well, you're with this dude who doesn't prioritize you. And that's a totally different conversation. But you might say in that moment, yeah, it feels like that, but can you see he's really trying? And I'm really trying too. And that's why you're here with me, so that you don't have to be alone feeling deprioritized. So the overall encouragement, I hope this is making sense. Feel free to chime in the chat. The overall encouragement is for you to connect to yourself in those moments. And this doesn't mean that your partner doesn't have any responsibility to you. We'll get to that final piece in a minute. But connect to yourself, give yourself some of what you need, and then you can reconnect with your partner and be like, hey, what is real? What is true here? And, is it true that you care about, the story I have is that you care about these other people more than you care about me. Is that true? That would be pretty vulnerable to say, but that might be a way of helping him really get the impact of his actions on you. And that might help him summon the strength when he has to set a boundary to do it, because he really gets how important it is in your relationship. And even so, it's probably going to take some time and adjustment. And, I've had this come up in my own relationship where I'm used to operating a certain way and I just go and do a thing. And then my partner is like, hey, like when you did that, like that didn't feel great. Didn't we even have a conversation about how you were going to talk to me about that thing? And for me, I'm like, oh, right. Like, of course, because it's so easy to just do what you always do. The important thing that you guys are doing, and I want to really commend you for this, is that you're bringing attention to it and that you're in the process. And it sounds like you're in it. If this was something that you were struggling with for a long time and someone was not showing any inclination to change really, then it might be a different conversation. So Melissa, I hope that was helpful for you. Thank you for everyone for bearing with me with that. This is what I like to do. I like to go deep, and it's important to me to really show up as best I can. I'm not going to give you just like the off the cuff, the Dear Abby answer. That's not why we're here. We're here to like really get real with each other. That's what I do. Mia says, so Melissa, just let me know how that lands with you. And, I think we might have time for one or two more questions. If anyone here has a question, just feel free to put it in the chat. I see we're up to 13 likes on the live stream, which feels good. Thank you everyone for the thumbs up. That's really helpful with the YouTube algorithm. Mia writes, one of my favorite videos on your channel was the session with David Burns. Does his work still influence you? It does. It does. His work with cognitive behavioral therapy, and then the way that he's advanced it to what he calls team CBT, so powerful. The ways, you can probably hear some of it in what I've been saying, the way that we talk to ourselves about what's happening, and how the way that we talk to ourselves impacts how we show up. I'm not going to say it's everything, because it's not everything. And, like David Burns has his way of looking at the world, and the Gottmans have their way of looking at the world, and Peter Levine has his way of looking at the world, and etc. Everyone has their way. I have my way, right? And I'm incorporating a lot of these different ways. But yeah, David's work is amazing. Feeling Good, his original book, is a classic. Feeling Great, his new one, is really good. Feeling Good Together, his relationship book. I read that and had him on the show about that. And I think he and I are due to have another conversation. We've had some emails back and forth about that. And then I think we both got sidetracked. So, but he'll be back. Yeah, we always have a great conversation. So I'm looking forward to that. There are lots of really cool, there's some return guests who are coming back. In fact, our first episode that's going to come out, it features Sue Johnson, who was one of my favorites and was a real diehard supporter of Relationship Alive. Unfortunately, she passed away earlier this year. But I did have a chance to connect with Sue before that happened. And I'm really excited to be able to share that interview with you, along with many others that are going to be super cool. We're going to be talking about, let's see, oh my gosh, so many things. We're going to be talking about how to connect your breath to your emotions and different ways of breathing that actually have a huge impact on your emotional well-being. We're going to talk about how to deal with self-harm, either in yourself or if someone in your life is impacted by self-harm. Now I'm drawing a blank. Isn't that funny? But yes, so we have Ken Page, one of my favorite guests. He's going to be coming back. So yeah, lots of good things in store on the podcast. Yeah, I'm looking forward to having David back. Thank you, Mia, for that question. And Melissa writes, I really like that approach of being a unified team against the issue and also connecting to self, deeper feelings to identify the meaning making in stories. So very helpful. Thank you. You're welcome. I'm so glad that that was helpful for you. And I look forward to hearing from you. My email address, I'll just say it right now so you have it. It's Neilius, Neilius, @neilsatin.com. Reach out. Let me know how it's going. And or come to another YouTube live stream. Oregon Grape writes, with a covert and evil or dangerous narcissist for 8 years, had to escape to survive. Any suggestions for how to heal, let go perhaps, or trust in order to one day allow a real love in? Okay. That's a good question. And way to save the best for last. First of all, wow, I'm just really feeling what that must have been like to be in that situation for 8 years. That's a long time to be suffering like that, and you know, to use, like, I can just tell by the words you're using, dangerous and escape and survive. Like, I just want you to know, like, I'm feeling you right now. Yeah, that's intense. So thank you for being willing to share that here on the show, on the live stream here. And thank you for also taking care of yourself and getting yourself out. I'm glad you're here so that we can have this conversation. And I can only imagine how much it took to make that escape. So yeah, sending like huge, feel all this coming through YouTube to you, just to say, good job, way to go, way to do that, way to take charge and get yourself to safety. And yeah, good, yeah. Wow, it's powerful, really powerful. Let's dig into your question a little bit. Suggestions for how to heal, to let go perhaps, or trust in order to one day allow a real love in. Yeah. So without knowing what you've already been going through and how you've tackled this, these are the things that come up for me around that. Yeah, definitely could do a podcast. I did one on narcissism, but it wasn't really about this. So it was more about different ways of seeing narcissism, because this doesn't apply to you, just to be clear, but I think that word does get thrown around a lot. And sometimes it's true, and sometimes it's just getting in the way of like actually resolving a situation. But sometimes it really is true. And in your case, I'm sure it was. So yeah, I will. Thank you for the suggestion. In fact, I'm going to write that down on my trusty Remarkable notebook. I'm not saying it's a remarkable notebook. It's literally a remarkable. These things are really cool. And now I don't have stacks of notebooks for everything. I just have this one little guy. And I'm going to write down your idea. On narcissism, the real deal. Yeah, we definitely need an episode on that. So, Angela says she's having a hard time hearing me. Is that true for anyone else? Can I just get, like, everyone in the chat, can you hear me okay? Or if you can't, I'll turn the volume up a little bit. But it might have just been that I was looking away from the microphone there. So anyway, I'll wait and see if anyone chimes in the chat. Meanwhile, or Angela, just make sure your volume is turned up on your end too, just in case. So, and by the way, thank you for being here, Angela. All right, so back to how do you heal? So I'm imagining that when I just kind of put myself there, that there may be a lot where there may be a lot where you need to make amends to yourself for having put yourself in that position in the first place, for staying as long as you did. Like, I can only imagine like the things that you might be saying to yourself. And so to the extent that that might be true, that you're feeling that way, then it's helpful to step back and be like, okay, like if that's true, what do I need to do to make amends to me? How can, like, if I did this to someone else, I mean, you wouldn't really do this to someone else, but what are gestures that I can offer myself that show me that I have value, that I have worth, that I'm worthy, that I'm important, that I'm lovable, all the things that might get eroded in a situation like that. Thank you, Zella, for chiming in. All the things that might get eroded in a situation like that. It's time to like look at those honestly, and if even if you're like, I'm not sure that I'm lovable, and it's that bastard's fault, like for like telling me that over and over and over again. Great, thanks guys for letting me know you can hear. If you can just look at yourself and be like, wow, like, okay, I think that, like, that can't be true, you know? Like, for one thing, I can tell you, I don't even know you, but just that you would show up here and be willing to be vulnerable like that, like, I feel the love from me coming to you, and we don't know each other at all. So, yeah, there's love. You're worth it. You're worthy. And like, to the extent that you can find the parts of you that are harboring this like sense of like, oh, maybe I'm not, like, if you can reel those parts in and be like, no, like, you're good. How can I make it up to you that you harbor this belief about yourself? How can I make that up to you? As I sit here asking the question, it makes me wonder what ideas come up for you. Are there ways that you can treat yourself, that you can take care of yourself? And perhaps you're already doing this. And honestly, escaping was definitely one way of doing that, right? Of showing yourself, I'm worth more than this. And maybe there's more that you can do in your day-to-day life that's just a reminder, like, and it can be something simple, right? It can be like, when you make yourself breakfast, you make your breakfast, and as you take a bite, you can be like, I choose to nourish myself. Like, I choose to take care of me. Just with your bite of oatmeal or whatever it is you're eating in the morning. Or take yourself out on a date, that sort of thing. Treat yourself to a nice outfit, or to a day at the spa or something like that. So these are ways to like just show yourself some love and care, and to help you heal whatever anger you have directed at yourself, in the off chance that you do have anger directed at yourself, so that you can start that process, so that as much as possible you can, like, I want to get back to your question here, because it was great. Let go, perhaps, or trust. So you want to be so full that your barometer, like, if you're full of your own value, then like other people, you're not relying on other people to make you feel one way or another. And I'm not saying this is what happened to you, but a lot of times the way that people end up in relationship with narcissists is because narcissists are really good at shining your ass and making you feel really, really special in the beginning, making you feel like you're the most amazing thing. And that can feel so, so good. And that's how they one way that they lure you in. And then they might even dole that sort of thing out. They can like give you little morsels of you're amazing in between all the horrible shit that they're doing. So yeah, you don't want to be, it's nice when other people value you and love you and care about you. I love that my partner loves me and cares about, like, don't get me wrong, like that feels good and I want it. But I'm not relying on it at my core, because at my core, and I had to do a lot of work myself to feel this way, at my core, I think I'm okay. It doesn't mean I don't have dark moments. I do sometimes have moments where I'm like, I'm an imposter or whatever. But at my core, like those things come and they go, and I'm like, no, I'm worth it. I'm okay. Awesome. Great. Oregon. Great. Thanks for chiming in. I've forgiven myself. And I do have more empathy of self. Great. Awesome. Yeah. He was amazing at the beginning and suckered me. Yeah. That's how it happens. I just want to like swear, but I probably shouldn't, because I don't know who's watching this. So yeah, forgive yourself, treat yourself. You ask, how can you let go and trust? And so that process, I realize I took a lot at the beginning. You've already done that step. Great. So part of learning to trust is getting clear on, how do you know if someone is trustworthy? How do you know? You could be like the person whose question I answered at the very beginning, where it's like you're 9 months in and you're like, how did I get here? Like that could happen. And it could be because you were missing signs, or it could be because you didn't see the signs weren't there until 9 months in. I mean, who knows? But for you, you got to get clear on like, all right, what's my barometer for trust, for letting go? And there are any number of ways that you can approach this. The first thing that comes up for me is a concept that's called titration. So, which basically means baby steps. Like, can you find situations where you need to let go a little bit, or you need to trust a little bit, and where you're able to like gauge, like, is this a situation that I can trust, or that's safe for me, and test it out, and then like kind of step back and decide, like, how was my barometer in that moment? Was it accurate or not? Or there might be ways where if you're feeling like you're in a situation, it's like danger, and you're not sure if it really is dangerous, or if that's just like you're hypersensitive or something like that, then that might be a good opportunity to check in with another person. If you have a friend there with you, to be like that situation really sketched me out. Like, does that seem, was I imagining that, or does that resonate with you too? So that might be a good way to get like another person's like, oh yeah, there was something a little off about that, or that, that person had the creep factor, or whatever it is. So you can learn to trust. It's a process of learning to trust yourself. And then also deciding on what you are looking for. So there's all the things that you want to avoid, and I'm sure you have a really long list from having been with this person of things, like if that thing happened, that would be an immediate like, no, I'm not going there. So that's good to have that list. That's one thing that will keep you safe. But the other thing is to like be working on your list of what are the qualities that I'm looking for, that I want in another person. And of course you can cultivate those qualities in yourself. But like, is someone kind? Are they kind to others? Like, are they kind to wait people at restaurants? Are they kind to homeless people on the street or whatever? Like, are they kind? Are they generous? Do they show up with true empathy? Like, are they really concerned about you and your feelings and who you are? Are they willing to, do they already understand the impact that they're having on you? Or if not, are they willing to hear it without getting defensive? Oh, when you did that, it really hurt me. Well, what do you mean it hurt you? Like, I was just like, okay, next. Like, if someone is just going to get defensive and not be willing to listen to you, then, I mean, I suppose on some level, like, people get defensive sometimes when they're triggered. So you might want to explore that a little bit more, like, hey, let's have a redo on that. Cause I want to get a sense of whether we can have this conversation or not. And you might find if you redo it that someone who got defensive might actually hear you. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a big no. But I'm listing some of these qualities because as you tune into those kinds of things, it's like, what are the qualities that make up a trustworthy person? I think, like, I just named some of the key ones. And then maybe on top of that, like, are they willing to grow and change? Like it sounds like Melissa's partner earlier is. So willingness to, like, have some humility around how they show up. Yeah, that's a really good sign. Okay, Oregon grape. I hope that was helpful for you. Bingo. Figuring out who someone is. Are they safe? I trust too quickly, and then, oh shoot, they're not worthy of my love. That danger idea could be great. Awesome. So yeah, you just pay attention. Like, oh, I have this instrument in me that's sensing the world, and I need to calibrate it a little bit. Like, maybe the dial went too far this way, and maybe you need to kind of crank it this way a little bit and adjust, and it's okay to be in that process. Yeah. Awesome. Great question. And Angela, thanks so much. I do intend to do these live streams more. This has felt great. Thank you all for showing up tonight, for being here with me. And if you have another 3 to 5 minutes, there's a little something that I have been working on that I'd love to share with you. So thank you for your amazing questions. I hope to see you again. And I'll say a little bit more at the end. But so here's the special thing to celebrate. Here we are together. If you didn't hear my my most recent podcast, one thing that I mentioned is that I have been working on an album of original music. It's many tunes. I've been writing songs my whole life. And when I turned 50, this past February, I turned 50. And I realized that it was really important to me to do this, to like give time and attention to this creative project, the music that I write that means something to me deep down, and to get it out there. Now, this song that I'm going to play for you, because I'm going to play a song for you, I wrote it for my kids, and but the name of the song is In It Together, and I think it also speaks to like us here tonight. Like, we are humans who are all in this experience together, and the more that we lean into each other and learn how to show up for each other and learn like who cares about us and to like surround ourselves with those people, the better life will be, I think, for everyone. This song is recorded with like string section and horns and all the stuff. I'm just gonna grab my guitar and play it for you. So I hope that's okay. And if it's not, then too bad, because I'm doing it anyway. All right. So I have a different microphone, so let me just switch these. Okay. Hopefully you can hear me here. And let's see. Oh, I'm also experimenting with this software, the live streaming software. So this shows you the song title. So try not to be too on the mic. Can you hear me okay? Someone wants to chime into the chat. Can you hear the guitar? Can you hear my voice? And hopefully I'm not too loud. There we go. All right, so In It Together. Here we go. There are so many things I wish I could help you understand. Sometimes you're just too young. Some things are out of my hands. Know that I do my best to be the one you can turn to. Sometimes I don't quite get it right. Someday I'll learn to. 'Cause all that we have is now. And the best way I figured out to make it through, no matter what we do, is to remember we're in it together. All the mistakes the grown-ups make, all the regrets they have, all of the lessons learned, they don't undo the past. And I thank God that's true, though it can be painful. Every mistake led me to you. For that I am thankful, and all that we have is now. And the best way I figured out to make it through, no matter what we do, is to remember we're in it together. Sometimes I wonder if we're strong enough. Is there love enough to get us through the dark times? And in those moments I just hang in tough, 'cause I got just what I need right by my side. So where do we go from here? We just keep going. So many twists and turns from moment to moment. Just know that I love you. Know that I got your back. One day you'll understand. And I thank God for that, 'cause all that we have is now. And the best way I figured out to make it through, no matter what we do, just remember we're in it together. No matter what we do, just remember we're in it together. Yeah, that was In It Together. Okay. Thank you for listening, for being here with me tonight. It's really a treat to share this time with you. It feels so good. And when I was Sorry, my son just chimed in. Vulnerable moment. Thanks, Dash. Yeah, I'm proud of you guys too. My kiddos. Yeah. We've been through a lot together. And we'll be going through more together too, thankfully. Awesome. Thanks, Oregon Grape. Yeah, wow. Yeah, I was sitting around and wondering, why am I doing this? I was really nervous about the live stream tonight, and thank you for being here with me and helping remind me of why I do this, because I care, and I love being able to show up this way and being helpful to others. I guess it's the caretaker in me, and I want to be there. So, but it only works if we're there together, right? So, yeah, thank you all for being here with me tonight. Stay tuned for more live streams, for new episodes of Relationship Alive, and for new offerings coming out that I'm really excited about. And all of you, Oregon Grape, Mia, Peter, Christopher, wow, so great to see you here. Maxine, Zella Dash, Esteban, Mia, Zach, all Melissa, and you who will remain anonymous but who sent in the original question. Thank you all for showing up. And even if you didn't comment here, and maybe you're watching later, I think I'm gonna post this as well. Awesome, thanks for showing up. So great to be with you. And let's see if this works here. Yeah, if you listen to the podcast, that might be some music that you recognize. That's another song by the Rail Splitters called The Estuary. Yeah, Angela, where can we go to hear that? Well, I mean, it'll be here on the recording of the live stream, but I'm working on the album. It's not quite ready, but it'll be ready sometime in the next year. Hopefully not at the end of that year, hopefully sometime sooner, but just taking my time with it. Yeah, sometimes the good things take a lot of time. And heck, I've been here with you guys for Relationship Alive for 10 years now. So let's do it for 10 more, at least. Thank you all, and have a great night.